What's up, Bama Insider Nation? Trey Yannity back with you for another player spotlight. But before we get that started today, guys, go hit the like button, subscribe. We're getting close to 50,000. We need your help. There's so much content out right now. Go subscribe, check it all out, guys. Hit that like button. Today, we're going to be doing a player spotlight on wide receiver Javon Baker. On the roster, Baker is listed at 195, 6'2", the sophomore from Powder Springs, Georgia. Coming out of high school, Javon Baker was one of the top-ranked wide receiving prospects in the entire country in the 2019 class. He was listed as a 4-star by all major outlets, ranked 109th on the Rivals 250 board, and the number 20 wideout in the country. Rivals.com also listed Baker as the number 14 player from the state of Georgia, and to cap off his high school career, Baker was selected to play in the All-American Bowl in San Antonio, Texas. Now, Javon was recruited by wide receiver coach Holloman Wiggins, who convinced Baker to choose Alabama over Michigan, Auburn, Florida, and Ohio State. No love for the home state there at Georgia. This past year, Baker joined the team as a freshman and quickly caught notice of his teammates and coaches with his ability to create space, pinpoint route running, and strong hands. Now let's take a look at his career to this point. Like I said, he was just a freshman last year, so he's only had 1 year under his belt. And with that wide receiving core, it was hard at times for Baker to get in and get playing time. But his hard work in practice did translate to the field when he was called on. It was against Tennessee for the first time, as you guys probably remember when Jaylen Waddle went out on the opening play of that game. That injury was incredibly devastating for a lot of reasons, but it did open the door for several wide receivers, including Baker, who made his debut that day, but wouldn't see any catches or get any targets in that Tennessee game. It took a little bit of time, but Baker would see his role elevate on Halloween night against the Mississippi State Bulldogs when he joined the special teams coverage. But he wouldn't record his first catch until 4 weeks later in the final regular season game of the season against the Arkansas Razorbacks, where he recorded 2 catches in that game and 15 yards in the Crimson Tide's convincing 52-3 win over the Razorbacks. After that, when Alabama got to the postseason, Baker didn't see much action, didn't post any stats from the conference title or either playoff game, but did play in those games, and as you can remember, did quite the backflip after Alabama won the national title over Ohio State. His role was pretty limited in those games, but a much different wide receiver core for Alabama in 2020 than it will be in 2021. For the first time since 2017, Alabama will be looking at a receiving room that doesn't include the names Jerry Jeudy, Henry Ruggs, or DeVonta Smith. But as John Mechie will tell you, this core of skill players is still very talented and has quite a bit of firepower. Let's take a look at how things are going to shape out on paper as we bring up that last year's wide receiving core. You notice some pretty talented players. On the left side, as we look at that 2020 room, DeVonta Smith was wide receiver number 1 at the X position, the wideout spot there. Javon Baker was listed as his backup on the roster, but filled in other roles as the season went on. Jaylen Waddle was the obvious number 1 when he was healthy there at that receiver H spot in the slot, but had Slade Bolden ready to back him up, and obviously Bolden came in and filled in for Waddle there after he went out against Tennessee. At the receiver Z spot last year, 2 familiar names, John Mechie, who will be returning this year, along with Xavier Williams, who will also be returning and looking to elevate his role as well as Baker. Let's take it over to the right side of the page and look at the 2021 room now. So, a little bit different here, not quite as much firepower, but it is still headlined by John Mechie, a name that most people can remember from last season and the year before that. And as you see there at the top, receiver X, the number 1 listed on the depth chart as of now is Javon Baker. Now, in my opinion, I think Javon Baker is going to be the John Mechie of last year. This is his chance to come onto the scene, get the playing time that he's deserved, and really catch a lot of people by surprise. His backup is going to be Trayshawn Holden, and then at that receiver H spot, you see Slade Bolden and Thaiu Bell-Jones as his backup there. This receiving core is different. Like I've been talking about, it doesn't have the names that we may be used to, but these players are ready to go and create names for themselves. And guys, don't forget, the wide receiving recruits coming in, including Christian Leary and I.A.G. Hall, are unbelievably talented, and we'll be adding to this group as well. Now let's talk about what makes Javon Baker. As we look at the scouting report here, the first thing I want to highlight, probably what you've heard the most, his unbelievable route running abilities. This kid is a mastermind at creating space. Incredible footwork has allowed him to separate himself from his defender in a lot of cases, and when he's been in the game, that's been how he creates his offense. Now, when you're a wide receiver, it doesn't matter how wide open you are if you can't catch the football. Thankfully, Javon Baker is known to have great hands as well. He high points the football incredibly well, as you'll see there in my second point. And the third point, another catching strong suit, Baker is incredibly aggressive on 50-50 balls when the defender has just as good of a chance as coming down with it as he does. He'll win that battle more times than not. All of these things are culminated together with a very savvy on-field presence. This is a smart football player. Javon Baker is incredibly talented and has the athleticism to defeat most defenders he goes up against, but what takes it a step further is his knowledge of the game and ability to translate that onto the field. Javon Baker is just beginning to come onto the scene at Alabama, but his name has caught some attention well before 2021. This past year, his teammate Jordan Waddle was quoted as saying he has great routes, and he probably has the greatest hands on the team as well. Keep in mind, guys, that was still when DeVonta Smith and Jaylen Waddle were on the team. His home trainer back in Atlanta, Georgia, was quoted as saying, Baker plays like he's 6'5", even though he's just 6'2". He also said later in that interview, sometimes I think he might catch better with one hand than he catches with two. Javon Baker's been turning heads for quite some time now, but hasn't had the opportunity to the extent that he may want. But this year, it will be his chance to break into this wide receiving core and become one of the top names, if not the top wide receiver on this team. We've seen these kind of players in the past. Like I mentioned, John Mechie had a similar role with an elite core of wide receivers in Judy, Ruggs, and Smith. Mechie kind of had to play fourth fiddle for a while, but came onto the core and really showed out and is now the #1 wide receiver on this team. Baker looks to do the same, and thankfully for Javon Baker, he's had the experience that most college players will never get to have. He's been in a college football playoff. He has participated in a national title. Didn't get any catches in either of those two games, but he got onto the field and was able to get playing time in the most meaningful games you can get as a college athlete. Javon Baker is an incredibly hard worker and has so much talent. Don't be surprised if you're hearing his name more times than most players on this offense come 2021. We have some spotlights coming up talking about guys that are going to have to fight for roles. Going to have to fight for playing time this season. Javon Baker will have to do that to an extent, but this is one of the players on the team that you will see named a starter very early on in the process. Alabama this year is losing two of the best receivers the school has been able to call their own. But Javon Baker, John Mechie, Slade Bolden, Aiji Hall, Christian Leary, and the rest of this receiving core is looking to rebound and show the nation why Alabama is wide receiver U, not just a flash in the pan, with the elite talent they've had in this past decade. This has been a Players Spotlight on wide receiver Javon Baker. Guys, hit that thumbs up button, subscribe to get more content like this and everything surrounding Alabama football. Javon Baker has 4 more years of eligibility. He will start in his second season with Alabama in 2021, and we'll have more on him as the season develops. For BamaInsider.com, my name is Trey Yanity. This has been a Players Spotlight on wide receiver number 5, Javon Baker.